Hey everybody, video here for you today. My last video came from Wisconsin. Why don't we stay in the upper Midwest? This is near the southwest corner of Minnesota, but it's actually on the border of Iowa and South Dakota, so we're kind of taking care of two states at once. The history here is very fascinating. There isn't much to see anymore, but this is called Blood Run, and it's right down here. Just to get oriented here, this is just a little southeast, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Pretty good sized city there in the southeast corner of that state by the little city of Granite, Iowa, right down here. But this also has a few other names. The Good Earth State Park Visitor Center is right here. And they also have a little area up here, the Gitchie Manitou State Preserve. But the village seemed to be a little south of that, but those are some other things in the immediate area. And if you watch a channel called Mobile Instinct, he did a video on the Gitchie Manitou site down here, and a pretty grisly story coming from almost 50 years ago, if you want to go check out his channel. But the ruins down here is more fascinating the more I looked into it, mainly because of the long history here, and also because there was a Serpent Mound here that might have been as big or maybe even bigger than the one in Ohio. Now this place is called Blood Run because this creek, there is red sandstone that this creek runs through and has a red tint to it, and that's symbolic of the earth bleeding. So that's why it is called Blood Run. But one thing I want you to notice here, there was reports of stone circles all over this area, and if you just search this area on Google Earth, you can find stuff like this. Stuff grows differently. Certain things are under the soil here, but that is just one of many sites I found in this area. Here is a PDF I found. We will come back to that. But here's a map coming from over 250 years ago, and things were called different names back then, but I believe on the left-hand side of the map here, you can see the last remnants of this ancient village. Most of what you see written on this place is written on the Oneota culture, and they started living here maybe 900 to 1,000 years ago. And then by the turn of the 19th century, this place was mostly gone and wiped out by cultivation of farmers. That is pretty much the story that I read. But one fascinating report is that there was a Serpent Mound somewhere around here that rivaled the one in Ohio. One report said it was an eighth of a mile long. One report said it was a quarter of a mile long, and that's how long Serpent Mound is in Ohio. And then one report I read said it was a mile and a quarter long. But there was definite reports from reputable archaeologists here that there was a huge Serpent Mound here at one time. Here is the site today from overhead. Here is a little diagram of the boundaries of Blood Run National Historic Landmark. There were archaeologists here in the 1800s, one named Hyde, one named Pettigrew, another named T.L. Lewis, and he documented mounds in St. Paul, Minnesota. I've used his work before. He also documented the serpent effigy in Afton, Minnesota that I talked about, I believe, about a year ago. But they documented 275 mounds here in the 1800s. Today, the remnants of about maybe 75 or 80 still exist. Let's do a little reading. Blood Run encompasses over 1.3 square miles or 844 acres along both sides of the Big Sioux River on the Iowa-South Dakota border. Named for Blood Run Creek, the site was home to numerous prehistoric and proto-historic groups. Most notably, it is the largest known and most complex site of the late prehistoric Oneota tradition. Above the ground, remnants of this community includes large and small mounds, enigmatic pitted boulders, and we'll look at those, and those are found in other parts of the world. Large rocks with hundreds of small cups covering their surface. But it says historically reported were other pitted boulders, boulder outlines, small circles, but I guess there was numerous small circular enclosures found made of stone in this area. But a serpent effigy mound. And there is numerous reports on the size of that thing, but most of them said it rivaled the one in Ohio. And it says, and a 15-acre enclosure, an oval-shaped earthen embankment that kind of surrounded this ancient city here. Now here is a large pitted boulder at the site, and the archaeologists reported finding many of these when they first got here. And the reports on all the websites are pretty consistent. Humans got here about 6,000 to 6,500 BC. Human occupation here for about 8,500 years. That's one of the most long occupied places in the country, I believe. And it says that in a few of these articles, but it says the Blood Run National Historic Landmark is a site that bridges many worldviews in time and culture. It is a place of many voices, many histories, and many stories. And it says this place is connected to Pipestone National Monument, which is just a little north of here on the western border of Minnesota. And there was stuff found quarried at Pipestone National Monument, found in many other locations throughout ancient America, and that's an important place that I really haven't talked about too much. And there was a serpent stone effigy reported at that site. It says it's also connected to the Jeffers Petroglyph site in Minnesota. And I actually had a message come from one of my subs on that site, and I actually read a story on that over the weekend. But here are some artifacts found, pipes and pipestone fragments, characteristics of the Blood Run site, and here's one stone pipe right there. Other small artifacts found at the site. Just to give you a little perspective, here is the Blood Run site right down here by Sioux Falls. Here is the Pipestone site. That is a very important place. Artifacts from there are found as far east as Illinois and Indiana. Then we go down to the Jeffers Petroglyph site. They have a visitor center down here. Petroglyphs that they say go back maybe 7,000 years are found here. There's a visitor center, and then there is a stone outcropping right down here. Here's a story that came out about 5 or 6 days ago. The Jeffers Petroglyphs, a living sacred site with native carvings thousands of years old. This comes from WCCO in the Twin Cities. And hi, Frank and Amelia. My sister has worked for the Good Neighbor. But this is a pretty interesting video here, and I will leave the link below. But it goes over the carvings here on this outcropping, and expert here giving his interpretation of what they are. He maybe thinks a thunderbird is depicted, and he thinks some of these might go back 10,000 years. And I will leave the link below. In the late 1800s, farmers took out the mounds, the serpent effigy, the large enclosure that the village was enclosed in. But if you look around here on Google Earth, you can just find little traces of things that used to be here. Here is one place where there obviously was ancient mounds at one time. Stuff grows differently, but here, kind of in a pattern. But where that large serpent effigy was is still a mystery, but it's reported on all the archaeological reports on this site. There are a few sites that look better than others. I'm just basing that on where the mound in Ohio was located. There's one spot up here, right down here, where maybe it could have been, only because this here points to the summer solstice sunset, just like Serpent Mound. That is just a guess, just like the Serpent Mound in Ohio, I should say. But man, one report said it is a quarter of a mile long. It said it rivaled Serpent Mound. Where was that? I don't know. You can only guess as far as where that serpent was, but it was somewhere right down in this area here. And it was taken out in 1886, I believe, when they put railroad in here, and they used tons and tons of fill from these mounds and the serpent effigy and the earthworks. Here's one stone artifact found on a red stone here, probably what tints that creek red, why they call it Blood Run. Is that a serpent right there? I'm not sure how old that artifact is. Here is a diagram of this site when it was flourishing, all the mounds and the dwellings around here. And there was reports of stone circles all around this place. Here is one artifact called the Man in the Mood bead, but I think they mean man in the moon right there. And here is one artifact with the circle in it, a little pattern in the middle. It says Blood Run Marine Shell. And did this artifact come from way far away, like the Gulf of Mexico? I'm not sure, but this place seemed to be a very important place as far as trade between the Midwestern mound builders and the western part of the United States. But here is a diagram of all the mounds, the dwellings here. That's how congested this place was at one time. And here is a look today. Is this an ancient earthwork or something modern here? Part of the enclosure that went around this ancient city? I'm not sure. Here is a website I will leave below. Blood Run. The archaeological site called Blood Run was an enormous Oneota village located on the terraces and hills on both sides of the Big Sioux River in South Dakota and Iowa. Archaeological evidence at the site indicates that the site was occupied for at least 8,000 years. Oneota groups lived here between 1200 and 1750 AD. It is the largest Oneota cultural site known in Iowa, estimated to have covered an area between 650 and 1250 acres. And most of these mounds were hauled away for building a railroad in about 1885, 1886. And today we can just guess what this place looked like and how that serpent effigy was displayed. Here is another website I will leave below, but this is the map I showed at the beginning here. I guess that comes from 1718, where it shows this ancient village. It says, although declared a National Historic Landmark in 1970, its integrity is endangered by gravel quarrying and looting. The site was substantially looted in areas wholly destroyed by settlers and looters through the late 1930s and by subsequent generations of collectors. A possible snake mound rivaling the Serpent Mound in Ohio was used for railroad fill. Now, as far as that one diagram that showed the border of Blood Run National Historic Landmark, it's pretty much right in this area right here. And then right here we have two active quarrying areas right here. One right there and one right there. And if you read some reports on this site, they think this place is much bigger than the diagram states. As many as 10,000 people lived in this area, and on Google Earth you can find remnants of this ancient culture all over this area. So two active quarrying areas going on pretty much right on the northern boundary of that original diagram of this site. That is a video on the Blood Run site on the border of Iowa and South Dakota. Pretty fascinating history there, one that goes back maybe 8,500 years when humans started occupying this area. The Serpent Mound, where was that? How big was it? I think that's a fascinating story and some true lost history come from ancient America. But I will be making some videos coming up on some other parts of the world. Hope you thought that was interesting. You all have a very nice day.